The movie begins in a factory in France, where many workers invade the owner's office seeking justice. They want him to take responsibility for the recent accident that injured many workers. But the owner, arrogant, says he is not guilty and refuses to compensate for the damages. This makes the workers very angry, and they start breaking everything in the office. They destroy the place and attack the owner. The police arrive quickly, but even they cannot control the furious crowd. One of the workers, Michal, gets so angry that he jumps on top of a police officer and begins to strangle him. It turns out that his girlfriend, Karen, was also one of the victims of the accident, and he is trying to get justice for her, but he is quickly detained by the other police officers who handcuff him. The film then advances to several months later, where Michal is seen resting at home. He has been released from prison, but cannot leave the city. An ankle monitor tracks his steps all the time. Michal has also separated from his wife, Elise, and now lives with his girlfriend. Karen is still bedridden because of the injuries suffered in the accident. Later, we are introduced to Michal and Elise's teenage daughter, Selma. Previously a cheerful girl, her life changed drastically due to her parents' divorce. Now she has distanced herself from friends and acts coldly toward everyone. One day, during horseback riding lessons, Selma sees her friends watching the video that led to her father's arrest. They laugh and mock the incident, saying, "Imagine if he was like that with Selma's mother in bed." Selma becomes furious and rubs horse manure in her classmate's face. Because of this, her mother is called to the principal's office. Selma is severely warned and notified that if she doesn't change her attitude, she will be expelled from school. That night, upset Selma goes to her father's house for the weekend. While watching television, she discovers that Latin America is experiencing rainfall 100 times more acidic than normal. This is the result of years of global warming and pollution. The rain is destroying rainforests and killing thousands of animals. Scientists predict that soon the acid rain will reach the northern hemisphere. Hey, what would you do to survive if one fine day it started raining acid rain? The movie I'm going to summarize is called Acid. It's a French film that mixes science fiction and drama. It's a good movie. Despite being a bit sad, it makes you feel very angry. That's why I already invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. Selma is curious about the news, but her father turns off the television, telling her not to believe such nonsense. One night, while she runs away to her father's house, it suddenly starts to rain. Ellis notices that her daughter left the window open, so she closes it and places a towel on the floor to absorb the water. Without knowing, the color of the towel changes, showing that the water is acidic. The rain finally stops the next morning, but the day remains very cloudy and dark. Meanwhile, many people have been hurt due to the rain, and the country is on high alert. When Elise finally reads the news, she becomes worried about her daughter, who went to school. She tries to call her daughter, but can't reach her. Since her car is at the mechanic, with no other choice, Elise contacts her ex-husband, Michal, and tells him about the situation. He also becomes worried, and they decide to go together to Selma's school to pick her up. Unfortunately, when they arrive at the school, they discover that the students went for a horseback ride in the forest. The couple immediately rushes there, but many other parents are also at the location, causing a traffic jam. At that moment, Elise gets out of Macon's van and sees dark clouds forming in the sky. Then she and her husband leave the road and run to save their daughter. Meanwhile, we see Selma and her horse alone in the forest. She is a very inexperienced rider, so her friends left her behind to come back for her later. Suddenly, some raindrops begin to fall, burning the branches and leaves on the ground. This also affects the poor horse, which starts running in panic. Outside the forest, the parents realize that the truck cannot go any further, so Michal decides to continue on foot. Selma desperately begins to run in search of shelter. Fortunately, he finds Selma when she comes out of the forest alone. The two take shelter in a nearby stable, shortly before it starts raining heavily. However, the place proves to be unsafe when several drops of acid rain begin to leak through the roof. This leaves Michal terrified, so he quickly calls his wife to inform her where they are. Elise then drives through the intense rain and low visibility, but somehow manages to reach the stable. After that, the family gets into the van and leaves. On the way, they hear the terrible screams of people being burned to death by the acid rain. Eventually, they reach the main road, but it's still blocked due to traffic. With their truck slowly disintegrating due to the rain, Elise knows they don't have much time, so she drives over several cars. Suddenly, the back door opens, and an injured man tries to get in, but Michal pushes him away and closes the still intact door. Then Elise sees a chance and quickly drives away, narrowly escaping the disaster. A few hours later, the rain finally stops, and we see the damage it caused. Many people are dead in the streets, and various objects are unrecognizable, melted. Meanwhile, the family is still on the road trying to leave the country. But soon, the truck breaks down because of the damage caused by the acid. This forces the family to seek shelter for the night in an abandoned house. To their surprise, the place was decorated for a birthday party that, unfortunately, didn't happen. They also find a pet cat eating the party food alone. Selma tries to pet it, but her mother stops her, saying its fur may be contaminated by the acid. Meanwhile, Michal finds running water, but doesn't know if it's safe to drink. He thinks for a bit and decides to test it on the cat, putting some in its bowl. However, Selma doesn't like the idea and quickly pours the water down the sink. Elise then finds bottled water, and the family takes turns drinking it bit by bit. Afterward, they eat something from the refrigerator and use aluminum foil on their feet, which gives them temporary relief in the difficult situation they're in. Michal goes back to check the bowl and, to his surprise, sees that it has melted. This shows that the tap water is not safe to drink at all. A few hours later, the parents fall asleep, but Selma cannot sleep because of the sound of raindrops outside. It starts raining again, and some drops are coming in through the roof. Selma goes to check on the cat and finds it injured and lifeless, which greatly disturbs her. She runs back to her mother for comfort. In the morning, the rain stops, and the family continues on foot. They find thousands of other people like them, eager to leave the country. After hours of walking, they reach a bridge where the police allow the passage of only a few people at risk of it giving way. But the furious crowd continues to push. In the midst of the tumult, Ellis is pushed forward and separated from her family. Now it's her turn to cross the bridge with a small group of people. Ellis tells the police that she cannot continue without her family, but they insist that she proceed. Unfortunately, as she advances a bit more, the bridge begins to collapse out of nowhere. Many people are immediately crushed by the debris, while others are trampled in the confusion. Elise tries to reach her family, but gets trapped in the middle of the agitated crowd. Then, the railing behind her breaks, causing her to fall into the water, along with several other people. This causes burns and melting on her skin, and she screams in pain. When Selma sees her mother struggling in the water, she runs to help her, but Michal interferes. The two can only watch as poor Elise suffers an agonizing death in the water. After this incident, the army escorts people in their trucks. They are taken to a military barracks where they receive food and shelter. Michal takes this opportunity to communicate with his girlfriend, and they finally talk after a long time. In the morning, the civilians are divided into groups and transported in trucks. They are taken to a forest where they will have to continue the rest of the journey on foot. The army officers guide them with red flares to prevent anyone from getting separated. Sometime later, clouds begin to appear again, which leads everyone into a state of panic. People start running to save their lives, but Selma, tired, begins to walk slowly, stumbling. Michal does what he can to keep her moving, but this delays them, and they get separated from the rest of the group. When they see that the rain is almost reaching them, they begin to run. Fortunately, they find a nearby tunnel and take refuge in it shortly before it starts raining. The two then pass through the dark tunnel, but disaster happens when Michal slips and falls to the ground. The acidic moisture burns his leg, causing him severe pain. Even so, they continue walking until they exit the tunnel. The rain has stopped, and the clouds have also dissipated. Father and daughter then walk for many hours until they find some houses. Michal tries to knock on one of the doors to enter, but gets no response. This uses up his last strength, and he ends up falling to the ground due to exhaustion. When she saw this, Selma runs to Michal and begins to shout for help. When Michal regains consciousness, he discovers that he is in the house of one of the residents called Deborah. She seems to be a severe woman who lives with her young son. After seeing Michal's ankle monitor, thinking he is dangerous, Deborah offers bottled water and clean clothes to Michal, but refuses to share food because it is already scarce. Later, while Selma explores upstairs, she notices that the walls are stained due to the acid. She also finds a device covered by plastic and tries to touch it, but Deborah prevents her. While talking, Deborah reveals that the device is used for her son's dialysis treatment, but sometimes they can't go upstairs due to the leaking roof. When Mikhail discovers this, he generously helps bring the device downstairs so the boy can safely have his dialysis. Deborah thanks him for the help, and Mikhail goes to the neighboring house to hunt for food. That night, during dinner, Deborah gets angry because Mikhail didn't offer the food he got and her son wanted to eat. Mikhail was honest with William, saying that his mother refused to share food, so he's doing the same. That night, Mikhail decides to sleep in the garage, explaining to his daughter that those who don't share food are not considered friends, and also because it's safer. But when they turn off the lights, Deborah closes the door from the outside, afraid that Mikhail might do something. She then goes near her son and lies down beside him, waiting for what will happen. Soon, it starts raining very heavily, and the house begins to leak water. The faucets and electrical wires begin to melt as acidic smoke comes out of different holes. Below, Mikhail and Selma suddenly wake up and realize that the house is falling apart. They try to open the door, but it's locked from the outside. Selma doesn't want to abandon her new friends, so she screams for them, but her father quickly pulls her away as the house begins to crumble. Then, they get into Deborah's car and quickly drive away. Mikhail has great difficulty driving because visibility is almost zero and the car is beginning to disintegrate, but he manages to get them out of the storm safely. After hours of driving, they reach a field and the rain stops. Selma, in panic, asks where they are going, but Mikhail himself doesn't know, so he ends up shouting at her out of frustration. He then gets out to breathe a bit, but the wet grass burns his legs, so he returns. To his surprise, Selma has disappeared from the back seat. She ran away alone, but is facing difficulties because of the acidic ground. When Selma can't stand the pain anymore, she climbs onto a metal structure. However, it gradually begins to sink due to the corrosive soil. Just when it seems like she's going to die, her brave father appears and rescues her from the structure. Then he carries her on his back with his legs being corroded by the acid. With much pain and effort, somehow manages to reach their car. Mikhail's legs were severely burned in the accident, and he faints soon after due to the intense pain. At dawn, a military team rescues them and quickly takes them to the hospital. Mikhail receives immediate treatment, while Selma asks about Mikhail's woman. She discovers that her father's recent girlfriend, Karen, died a few days ago. When she returns to see her father, it's clear that he lost both legs to save his daughter. Selma doesn't want to upset her father more, so she doesn't tell him that Karen, his girlfriend, died. The film ends with Selma falling asleep in her father's arms as he recovers. Hey, what's your opinion on this movie? Write your rating in the comments. Don't forget to activate the bell to be notified of new summaries. So until next time,